Welcome to this week's Renaissance Man. And I'm officially a professional. I've been doing this for almost 20 years, covering sports and entertainment. And every now and then, you get a wake up call because there's a veteran in the industry that knows more, has done more, and you can learn a lot from. Katie Couric is my guest this week. Welcome to the Renaissance Man. Thank you very much for joining me.
Hey, Jalen, it's great to be with you. That term veteran, though, always kind of makes me bristle because I think that's a synonym, Jalen, for old.
Not at all. Not at all. Experienced,
Okay,
wise.
maybe. All right.
What has it been like during this this last few years? What has it been like to work on, this side of the media?
Oh, you mean what side? You mean, or like building my own company or covering the Trump
Well, here's
administration or?
what I mean. We just had a president elect take place, and both of us work in corporate America. And there are times where we walk to the edge of the pool and we have to figure if we're going to jump. And I see your eyes. Every now and then you think about jumping. You think about it. You've been thinking about it. And so, what has it been like to cover multimedia in this political cycle that has really taken place these last couple of years?
Yeah, I think it's been so challenging, Jalen, and I think about I'm sort of out of the mass media business because I think partially because I think it's become an oxymoron and that, it's much more niche media, people doing things like you're doing, people starting companies like I have. But for people who are still working in traditional media, I have really felt for them because you saw in this election, 70 million plus people voted for Donald Trump. When you're working at a major news organization, you cannot afford to totally alienate people. So I think for those folks who have been covering this administration and recently this election cycle, they have had to tread so carefully. And I think we've never had a president who's behaved like this, who has broken so many norms again and again, who has basically tried to shred our institutions like a free press or tried to mock science or at least not respect it. So I think it's been very unsettling and kind of upending to have to figure out how you deal with somebody like this who is still the president of the United States of America. So I think there are going to be a lot of things written, Jalen, now and in the next, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, talking about this period in our nation's history. You know, um, I have so many thoughts on this, Jalen. I could almost write a thesis about this, but you know, as Les Moonves, the former head of CBS once said, Donald Trump is terrible for the country, but he's good for business.
Mm.
Well, therein lies the ultimate rub, right? He was a huge ratings machine. It was engagement through enragement. People were fascinated by him. And I think between that and also this idea of wanting to appear unbiased, it was a real conundrum. And you saw, I think, slowly but surely, so many people come to the realization, myself included, that this person was a danger to democracy.
Hmm.
And I would say it's not hyperbolic to say a menace to society and that he had to be called out and had to be stopped in many ways. So I think you've probably seen me evolve a little bit in my thinking on this. I tried to kind of do my best to stay neutral, but it really was almost impossible if you saw the things that he did, the things he said, and the decisions he made to stay completely unbiased.
How important is it for you with your voice and your wisdom when you see a lot of the things that are happening and you hear a lot of the rhetoric, to go from being someone, like you said, that tried to figure a way to completely denouncing that behavior?
Well, I think that the old fashioned way the media would operate would to put it out there and let people come to their own conclusions. Obviously, we're human beings. Everybody's perspective is shaped by their own life experiences. That's why diversity in media is so important, diversity of all kinds.
Mhm.
But I think that, I've been thinking a lot about this because I'm writing a book about my life. And when I interviewed David Duke back in the early 90s, I called him out for his racist, anti Semitic rhetoric. And I remember my dad, who was a newspaper man in Atlanta, calling me and saying, "Bravo, that was great." Sometimes there's a moral imperative to not just give the news, but to help people understand the news. And so, I just felt like towards the end of this election cycle that when truth became so muddied by these competing narratives, and
Mhm.
when so many people were living in an alternate universe of information that had no basis in fact, that was just completely fabricated. I think it was important to really tell people the truth. And I'm really proud of a lot of the journalists I saw working under really difficult circumstances, and just persevering and getting information out there. And I think we saw with this meltdown that we've witnessed in the last few days and on the debate stage, that this individual is just not fit to run our country.
How do we pick up the pieces moving forward?
I think that's a great question, and I think there's so many ways into that. Um, I'm kind of an optimistic, positive person, so I want to think that we can start with a foundation of accepted facts again, but with this bifurcated media landscape, with one side espousing one point of view, replete with conspiracy theories and things that are just not accurate. Um, I just, that's a huge business now. And I'm hoping that some of these social media platforms will be regulated because they're not just the pipes. They have to take more responsibility for what goes through the pipes. I hope that we can, as Joe Biden said the other night, turn down the temperature. I had a really interesting conversation with David Brooks, who's a columnist for the New York Times, about how we got here. And he was talking about how people have taken politics, their political identity has become their ethnicity.
Mm.
It's become their whole identity. Like, I'm not just somebody from Virginia who likes, X, Y, or Z, who loves Broadway shows or whatever it is I like. I am, this person who feels that way. And our whole persona has become wrapped up into our political viewpoints. But I'm hoping that if Trumpism starts to recede, and I think it's going to take a while, that and hopefully someone more reasonable becomes the titular head of the Republican Party,
Mhm.
we can get back on track. But I think it's going to take a while, and I think maybe we have to wait till some of these older politicians die. I don't know. I mean, what do you think? I also think we have to be more compassionate and less judgmental. You
Mhm.
know, I I'm not a big fan of cancel culture. I think, fair-minded people are trying to learn. They may be asked to be taken out of their complete realm of experience to appreciate someone else's point of view. And at a certain age, that's kind of hard to do, I think, when you're raised a certain way. So I think it's easy for me to say. Whenever I say this, I think yes, but I haven't had to deal with the injustice and the indignities of being a person of color in America. So I offer that as a caveat.
Hmm.
But I feel like we need to help people along. And maybe I'm naive about this, but I think that's part of the healing process, to not attack. And it's a human, natural human instinct, I think, to feel defensive when you're attacked, right? Like you close up, you dig in your heels and you feel threatened. I think it's almost a primal thing. So if we can approach it in a less confrontational way, I think it's easier to change hearts and minds. But I'm curious what you think. How do you think we can
I,
come
I
together?
I agree with you. I'm not a fan of the idea of quote unquote cancel culture because I would rather hear where people stand and respect and appreciate where they stand. The reason why the pollsters were so wrong in this election and any election in particular in 2016 is because people on both sides understood that if they were to take a stand, that a lot of people will be upset at them. And so for me, for example, this year when Lil Wayne or Pump is standing on the stage with Trump, they're going to be 98% of people that look like me that are really disappointed in them. Not because that they want them canceled, it's because they feel we help make you who you are. And now all of a sudden, after you made all of this fame and money and got all of these opportunities, now you feel like you want to talk about us and what we're not. That's what it becomes. But for me, I like to know where people stand. But the one thing we can't get confused is coronavirus is actually taking place. We're in a pandemic. You have your wall of fame up. I have my wall of fame up. We become engineers as multimedia personalities. So, how has this period changed your life?
Well, I mean, I think that I'm using technology in the best possible ways, like to be able to sit here in my office and I'm at my house, and to be able to look at you and have a conversation and connect with you. Um, I think it's incredible in a way, and I think it's made me realize that we can do things even though we're millions of miles away. I'm on Long Island, you're in Detroit, right?
I'm
And
actually in Connecticut right now, but I
oh,
was in Detroit.
okay, so you're in Connecticut,
Yeah.
not that far away.
Yep.
But I think what it's taught me is that human beings are incredibly adaptable. But it's also taught me that, again, this division in our country has really been an impediment for us when it comes to facing this invisible enemy, and how important leadership is in every way. Um, and I guess that's not how much it's changed me, but it's changed my perceptions of the country. And I've always thought that leadership was important, but now more than ever, I feel like we need somebody who sets a good example,
Mhm.
who, uh, does the right thing, and who takes the right stand. So it's been a hard period for America. It's been so hard. I I've realized, and I've always thought this, how lucky I am. I think of all the people who've not only lost loved ones, but also lost livelihoods. And there is a tremendous amount of suffering out there. But I've also seen people like Jose Andres and all kinds of people really step up and want to do the right thing and to help their fellow man, for lack of a better term. So um I think it's changed all of us. And it's also changed my priorities. I don't think about, I don't have FOMO. I used to have terrible FOMO. And now I feel like it's kind of recalibrated my priorities, that you really have to take care of your really good friends and your family, and the rest is great, but it's not what really matters. When my husband was dying of cancer, Jalen, he said nothing really matters but your family and friends.
Mm.
And I think that's true. We're all on this hamster wheel. We're all trying to do this. And sometimes I think our priorities do get out of whack. And I think when push comes to shove, what really, really matters is taking care of the people in your life that you love. But also, I would probably add to it in circumstances like this. I'm sure Jay would have said taking care of people who are less fortunate too.
Mhm. Absolutely. And for me, like when I first got into this industry, CBS sports anchor James Brown was one of my mentors. As a former basketball player that loved football, he worked in football. He wanted to show the world that he's more than just a basketball analyst. This guy could talk about politics. This guy could talk about entertainment. So he put me under his wing, put me on his radio show. He took me to the studio. He did everything. Who was somebody that was a mentor for you in your career?
Well, I had a lot of them. I didn't have one person in particular. I worked at CNN back in the day when it was just starting, and I had a husband and wife anchor team named Don Farmer and Chris Curl. And when everyone else was saying, kind of dismissing me, I was young, I looked young, I sounded young, I wasn't very good. They gave me a chance and they saw something in me. And I realized to be successful in life, you really have to have someone in a position to make decisions who can give you opportunities, right? It really
Mhm.
comes down to that one person who says, "Hey, Jalen, you can do this. Why don't you do a podcast? Why don't you do why don't you be a sports commentator? Why don't you do X, Y, or Z?"
Mhm.
And without that, none of us would have the opportunities that we've been given throughout our lives. Certainly I wouldn't. So I would say I was inspired by people like Barbara Walters, who came before me, Diane Sawyer, who, I saw covering the State Department, all kinds of local anchors. Um, but I was really kind of a bit of a different breed when I came onto the scene, because I think, although, I mean, I think that I was just kind of the every woman. I wasn't glamorous. I was just kind of this girl that could be your neighbor or your sister or your aunt. And so I think I represented the possibility of being a journalist, a broadcaster who didn't necessarily, fit a particular mold.
How about this? You're going to appreciate this. The theme of this episode is called Be Ready to Seize the Opportunity When You Get It. How about that? And yours started on the Today Show in 1991 when Deborah Norville left for maternity leave. And as you mentioned, your career took off from there. Can you share that experience and how you were prepared for the opportunity?
Well, the good news was, that was my that was my probably my biggest on air moment. But I think the good news for me was that I had been a reporter for 12 years, by producer and a reporter. I had worked in local news in Miami and Washington D.C. I'd worked at CNN doing some on-air work, but also as a producer and assignment editor. So I had really paid my dues. I had learned the craft a little bit. I was still, relatively green. I still feel green today at 63, because it's always a new challenge and you have to approach every assignment as if it's almost, one that you need to do really well. And I've done some really well and some not so well. And so I think that I was ready. I was mature enough to handle the attention, um, because it was pretty overwhelming. And I had the experience so that I felt secure and comfortable in my own skin. So it was incredibly exciting. I felt bad because I think Deborah Norville is a really talented broadcaster. I think, there are all sorts of reasons, and the stars align a certain way that her pairing with Bryant Gumbel wasn't successful. Her predecessor, Jane Pauley, was loved and was seen as, viewers create a lot of drama. They're sometimes right. They sometimes recognize drama, and they're very protective of the people that they've become familiar with, and they really care about those people. So I think Deborah was put in a very tough position, but it was overwhelming and exciting. And um I think I was sort of built for that job because I really enjoy serious news and breaking news. I had covered the Pentagon, so I'm not a dope, but I also like some of the fun kind of things that we got to do on the Today Show too. I'm very outgoing and friendly, and I think I do have a big personality, but I also like to be challenged intellectually, and I like to think about big important issues. So I think that was one of those jobs that allowed me to kind of show every side of me, which was fun and very fulfilling.
There are so many people out there that see us on television, hear us on podcasts, radio, and want to do what we do. And there's so many people that have that opportunity. But what would you give as advice for something that qualifies as a really good interview?
Well, you mean how to do a really good
Yes,
interview?
how to do a really good interview. If you was going to give someone advice in this industry, what kind of advice would you give them?
Well, I'd say a couple things. I'd say do your homework. You know, I used to read a lot of articles if I was interviewing someone, and I try to find something really interesting about that person to talk about that maybe people don't know, right?
Mhm.
So let's say somebody, I don't know, is a dog trainer, or someone loves birding in their spare time, or something just interesting and different, right? Or they're an artist, or they play an instrument. So I try to kind of pick up on that to make it really interesting. So I would say do your homework, really try to find out a lot about that person. And never ask a question that could be answered in a yes or no. Um,
Mhm.
and and I think also think about things that might be instructive or universal for a lot of listeners. Um, the other thing is to really, really listen, to to be interested in that person. And I think that's something that you can't fake. Like you need to, if you want the most out of an interview subject, you have to really be connected. You have to feel like you're you really care, And I don't know about you, Jalen, but you can tell when someone's prepared. You can
Mhm.
tell when someone's going
Absolutely.
through the motions. You can tell when they're, know what they're talking about, and they've done their homework. And you can tell if they give a rat's ass about the conversation or about whatever it is they're talking to you about. Now, of course, when there's more of a confrontational interview with a politician or someone you have to challenge, it's a little bit of a different thing. But in those circumstances, you have to do many of the same things. You have to have laser like focus, and you really have to do your homework. So I sometimes, like when I'm doing an interview like that I think is going to be challenging, I I think of what that person's going to say, and I almost in my mind prepare a follow-up.
Mm.
So I have it in front of me. So I have the facts I need to challenge somebody. And Um, so and then I think you just get better the more you do it. Like Malcolm Gladwell says, 10,000 hours to perfect anything. The more you do it, the better you'll get. So I guess that's the best advice I could give.
That's wonderful advice. And going into this interview, that makes me feel good because I've been in full stalk mode of everything about your life, your career, your social media, your fashion, your politics, everything. When you first clicked onto this Zoom, I showed you a picture of you and my producer at a bar mitzvah. Okay. We've been in full stalk mode, Corey and I. And one of the things we noticed, whether it's an evening gown or a ball suit, you always have on a watch. Stalking your fashion. What's the deal with you and your love for watches?
Well, I don't, gosh, isn't it funny how a lot of people don't wear watches anymore because they look at their time on their phone, right? And I think
Yes.
that's actually affected the watch industry, although my husband and I are big fans of Shinola, a company that
Detroit.
started in Detroit, Michigan.
Yes.
And John gave his dad a Shinola watch. I gave John a Shinola watch for his
Mm.
birthday, but I wear a Chanel watch. I wish I knew the make of it, but it's black and it's kind of enamel. And I like big watches because I got to be honest, the older I get, the worse my eyes are, which is very helpful when I'm looking in the mirror. Because sometimes I look in the mirror and I think, damn, I look good. And then I realize I just don't have my glasses on. And then I put my glasses on, and in the bright light of day, I'm like, oh, but anyway, yeah, I usually wear a Chanel black watch. Do you know what kind of watch that is, Adriana? We should look it up. We'll look it up and I'll tell you
So
what
that's
make it
when
is.
I know I did some homework right there. I got you
Yeah.
asking people about something that you wear. Yes, I did good. Yes.
What
How
kind of
about
watch do you wear?
well, Shinola? So that's why I'm
Oh,
glad you
good.
brought it up because I've tried to do a better job of supporting people that either represent my hometown or do a good job of trying to give back to the community.
Good for you. I love that. And did I say Shinola? Because I should say Shinola, but that they got their name. You don't know, you know what, from Shinola, but Shinola. I went to Detroit. I did a series when I was at Yahoo. What is it? Oh, it's a Chanel J12 watch.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. But I went to Detroit, because I did a series when I was at Yahoo about cities that were rising. And Detroit was a really great place to go because although listen, there were problems, Jalen, with gentrification. A lot
Yes.
of people were being pushed out to the
Yes.
periphery of the city,
Mhm.
but there were also a lot of exciting things happening in Detroit to bring the city back. Now, it's interesting. A lot of that probably has changed since COVID, and people seem to be leaving cities. But I went to the factory, the Shinola factory, and I
Mhm.
love the fact that it's given so many Detroit residents jobs, and it was fun because in every part of putting those watches together, and then they have bikes, they have other products too. I just thought it was awesome that they came to Detroit and built that company right in the heart of Motor City, and that meant a lot of employment for a lot of people. So I'm so glad you're supporting them, and I try to do that as well, but probably Chanel isn't really in need of our support. But you know what? I'm not a real label person, and I happen to like that watch, and I for the longest time felt uncomfortable buying expensive things. I'm really frugal. I
Mhm.
think cuz I grew up in a very modest home, and my parents were very frugal and careful with money, um and so it took me a long time to once in a while splurge and indulge myself.
Mhm.
So that was a big, indulgent purchase. So I'm glad I got it, and I wear it a lot, even though I'm not wearing it right now.
So you've worked for ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, all of the alphabets. And then you decided
Everything. Think but Fox.
I like what you did there. And then you decided I'm going to start my own multimedia conglomerate, Katie Couric Media. Talk to me about what it's about to produce and create content independently.
Well, I have worked at all those great organizations, and I really loved it. I also worked at Yahoo, as I mentioned, uh, because I was really interested in digital media, and I wanted to create original content for Yahoo. And I did that for a number of years, and that was fun too. Frustrating in some ways, but really fun. And I realized that it would be fun to be an entrepreneur, that the landscape had changed so much, that I had established myself as somebody who I think was hopefully respected and trustworthy, and someone who had formed a relationship with viewers and consumers. And I thought it would be great to be the boss of me. You know, when
Mhm.
you have to work for other people, it can become so political,
Mhm.
right? You have to please that person. You have to, make sure you're sucking up and all the stuff that you have to do sometimes when you're working for a big kind of hierarchical corporation. So I thought, why not try to build my own business? I can make my own decisions. I can pick and choose the kinds of things I want to cover. I can have much more flexibility. I've gotten into documentaries and scripted material, digital series, and newsletter podcasts. And I think as media has become diversified, I wanted to have the freedom to do diversified content. So it's been really fun. I've been able to start this business with my husband John, who's got a very strong finance background. He's a really good businessman. He's very smart. And we've been able to hire mostly young women who want to be in the industry and really kind of want to play with a new model, which is working with companies that care about big social issues like I do, that want to help inform the public on various things from environmental sustainability to gender equality, racial justice, all kinds of things. And so I collaborate with them. They give me editorial control and freedom, but they're also supporting the work that we're doing. So it's been a really interesting model. It's not based on like how many clicks does some article get. It's really based on kind of the values that we hold dear at our company, and the fact that they happen to align with the values that companies now not only have, but are required to have, not only from consumers. For example, Shinola, you were saying how you support Shinola because they support the community. And I
Mhm.
think consumers want companies that care more about more than just the bottom line. They care about environmental sustainability. They care about employing people. They care about the things that their employees also care about. So it just happened that we came up with this business strategy and this sort of new paradigm at just the right time. And so far we've been really successful, and it's been really fun.
Well, I'm really um, humbled that you took the time and the energy to join me. You and your team have been really gracious to work with. Feel free to come back and promote anything that you have going on. I'm
Well,
a
you're
huge
so
fan.
nice.
Corey, the producer, is a huge fan. But before we get out of here, I like to do this segment of rapid fire called Gone in 60 Seconds.
All right.
Here we go. So
Oh
I saw
God.
you on Instagram and you was hitting a couple of moves. What is your go-to song at the party?
Oh, I'd have to say Earth, Wind, and Fire, September.
Oh, that's a classic. Ooh,
Yeah.
and the
I also
outfit
love
too.
This Old Heart of Mine by the Isley Brothers. I know I'm dating myself, but I love that song. And yeah, I guess those two. Two oldies but goodies.
There's no dates on classics. That's why they're called that. What is your favorite pre-interview ritual?
That's a good question. Hmm. I don't know. I mean, I probably just review and review and review and scribble additional thoughts on my questions. And I guess I just read my questions over and over again because I think you can never be too prepared. I don't have any, like, I don't meditate, I don't pray, I don't like dance or stretch or do yoga. I just get in there and I think my brain is I'm very easily distracted, but when I have a task at hand, Jalen, I have laser like focus.
Of all of the interviews you conducted, who surprised you the most or something that they said during that interview?
Oh my God. These are hard. I've done so many. I think Robin Williams was the wackiest person because you sat down and basically lost all control. You couldn't even pretend you were in control because he just took over the place and had everybody, laughing hysterically. Um, who surprised me? I, I, I think I have to think about it some more, but I would say you never knew what you were going to get when Robin Williams sat across from you, and what a genius! And I was so heartbroken uh, when he died, and I think the world lost a real light when Robin Williams left us.
I agree. Two of the most popular people in music are Cardi B and DJ Khaled. Which one of them do you feel like will have a brighter future in journalism? Because neither one of them bite their tongue.
uh, in journalism, uh, DJ Khaled.
He
You
knows
know
how to
why?
read
I
people
mean,
too.
Cardi is really funny. She's
Yes.
funny and crazy, and obviously has a huge following. I've interviewed DJ Khaled. I've never interviewed Cardi, but yeah, I think I'm not sure. I think, but I would have to say at this juncture, people evolve and they change and they go in
Mhm.
different directions. But I would say maybe DJ Khaled. But I love
Last
Cardi B too.
last thing you watched on Netflix.
Last thing I watched on Netflix. Oh, oh God, it was. Uh,
Like,
it.
where's the remote?
I don't. I. Uh. Well, I'm going to watch The Queen's Gambit. The last thing I watched, I did not like, and I fell asleep. So I'm not gonna. I don't want to say it because I don't want to hurt the person's feelings who did it. Uh. But yeah. Wait, we want to watch this thing called The Octopus. What is it called? The Octopus. Are you sure? I don't think that's what it's called. The Octopus Teacher. It's a documentary that all my friends are telling me to watch. Um, but I was watching The Undoing on HBO, and My Octopus Teacher is something that is definitely in my queue. Um, but I watched a very cheesy holiday movie that I thought was like, wow. And I'm not going to say the name of it.
You're so nice. Two more before I let you get out of here. Favorite comedian, dead or alive?
Favorite comedian, dead or alive? Oh God. Uh I mean, I do love all the late night hosts. I'm a big fan of Jimmy Kimmel's and Stephen Colbert, and I like Jimmy Fallon too. And I love Sam B. And can I tell you, I'm starting Trevor Noah. I
I
really
love him as
appreciate Trevor
well.
Noah.
I do too.
I don't watch him that much on TV, but I watch him a lot on Instagram,
Mhm.
which is sort of my little
New
mini
TV.
TV, my pocket-sized TV. I'm really enjoying Trevor Noah. And let's see, and I told you I love Sam B. I don't know, who's your favorite comedian, dead or alive?
Well, Dave Chappelle the other night had me reevaluating that. You
Yeah,
know,
I
that's what
love
made
Dave
me ask you
Chappelle.
this question. That question got added that night. I watched the Notre Dame game as somebody in the room with you wearing a Notre Dame shirt with and it was 40-40, and I clicked it on, and it was overtime. And then all of a sudden, Dave Chappelle came on. I was like, is he the greatest of all time? Like,
Right?
is he climbing? Like, I remember, like, it was Richard Pryor for me. There was Eddie Murphy. And to me, it was like the person who had the classic stand up, the
Yeah.
classic stand up. And I was like, he's evolving into that conversation.
Yeah. I love Dave Chappelle too. I saw him in concert and
Mhm.
got to go backstage and say hey.
Me too.
And he's a really interesting guy. But I always like to think of women too, right? I mean, and
Mhm.
are there's so many different kinds of comedy now. There are shows that, I love Issa Rae. I'd
Mhm.
love the Broad City Girls. So, what's great is that we're seeing so many different kinds of comedians. And it's not an anomaly when you see a really funny woman like it was for Joan Rivers for so many years, right?
Legend.
Or before that, Phyllis Dillard. I'm really,
Mhm.
really aging myself now. But so it's so awesome, I think, to see, as I said, so many different people kind of having a voice now, which I think has been such an important and exciting development.
Well, like the Beastie Boys said, I got more rhymes than Phyllis Dillard.
Yeah,
They say that in the
exactly.
song. I love them. Classic. Last but not least, we lost Alex Trebek of Jeopardy. And in paying homage, I saw a couple of interviews and saw that he talked about the next host is going to garner the respect of the next generation. So if you could pick the next host of Jeopardy, who would you choose?
I don't know. Who would you choose?
That's a tough one. That's
How
why I
about
wanted to
Chris
ask
Rock?
somebody that's smarter than me.
How
I
about
don't know.
Chris? How about Chris Rock?
That's a good one. He has great stand-ups too. A
I
couple
think
of them.
I think Jimmy Kimmel would be really good too,
That's my guy. He would be
because
good.
he's kind of like an everyman, and I think he's funny, and I think he's got such a big heart, So I think those two. How about a woman though? What
Let's
woman
do it.
could replace
Let's
Alex
do it.
Trebek?
We got to represent Kamala in the White House. The woman that's going to do Jeopardy. Who is it?
I don't know. What woman could do Jeopardy?
How about Queen Latifah?
Queen Latifah would be good. Tina Fey.
Tina Fey would be good.
Tina Fey would be good. Yeah. I think Queen or Tina.
Well, we got it all figured out. I thank you very much for taking the time. It's been an honor.
Thanks, Jalen. It's been so fun talking to you, and we're both talking to each other in front of our walls of photos. And just tell us real quickly, for people who are listening and not watching, tell us some of the things you have on your wall, because I see you have a photograph of Rosa Parks.
Yes, I do. And during an election year, it was important for me to highlight her and the sacrifices she made for our civil liberties and to pave the way for people like Kamala Harris, the first VP elect of color in the White House. On my right shoulder, I have my Detroit representation. That's Anita Baker.
Oh,
The
I love
album.
Anita Baker.
Yes, Rapture is the for her first album, and she's like a mother to me.
Really?
Yes, so it's like having Detroit Queens over my shoulder because both of them are synonymous with my hometown. And the other picture that you may or may not be able to see, that's Nelson Mandela. When he got out of jail, the Pistons had won the championship, and he came to Detroit and he has on a Pistons jacket. And the person that's pictured with him is Mayor Coleman Young, who was the first African American mayor of a major metropolitan city in Detroit. And two other
That's
people
right.
in the picture are Isaiah Thomas, one of the top 50 basketball players of all time, and John Sally. And so having those guys over my shoulder are kind of like having my angels. Who are some of
That's
the
so
people you have hanging behind you?
Well, let's see. Well, sadly, there are a few pictures of moi, but I also have a courtroom sketch of Ruth Bader Ginsburg wearing a jabot that I gave her after I interviewed her, with a handwritten note on her US Supreme Court stationery, which is very cool.
Yes, it
There's a
is.
picture of Hillary Clinton greeting my father when she had a White House event for colon cancer after the death of my husband, which was so kind and caring of her to do. Um, I have a picture of me with Yasser Arafat following an interview I did with him. There's a note from Barbara Walters. There's a New York Post article when Ross Perot said, I mean, a cover of the New York Post when Ross Perot said I was trying to prove my manhood by asking him tough questions. There's a note from George Herbert Walker Bush that says, with a bumper sticker that says, annoy the media, reelect Bush. There's a picture of me sitting with Barack Obama.
Wow, you have legendary people hanging up there.
Yeah, there's on the cover of Time magazine when I did my colon cancer efforts and when I did a colonoscopy on the Today Show. And gosh, there's a note. I got a lot of notes. I got some funny notes. I got a funny note from George Burns when he was in the hospital. And anyway, Lady Bird Johnson, Mike Myers, Dana Carvey, when I substituted for Jay Leno on the Tonight Show. Anyway, it goes on and on and on. But
well, you have a wall of fame for sure.
And sadly, Katie seems that we got to wrap things up. So I want to, let y'all know.
Is that Corey?
Yeah, I want to be respectful.
Oh, don't worry. Well, listen, I'm just so happy to do this. It's been really fun spending time with you, Jalen, and with you, Corey. And I'll see you at the next bar mitzvah, Corey.
and Katie, I would say thank you so much. The reason why I'm here right now is because of you. You're one of my biggest inspirations.
He's not faking. He is not kissing up. He is not being phony. I promise.
That is so nice.
I want to give you your roses while you're living. Thank you so much for being an inspiration to me and others.
Well, thank you, Corey. And I'm so proud of what you're doing. And Jalen, you too. Keep it up.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. And we'll definitely keep in contact.
Okay. Take care, y'all. Thanks for having me.
Please thank your team as well.
I will. Okay. Take care.
Bye.
Oh,
wait. Hold on.
Can you just ask?
Wait, I'm supposed to ask something.
What's up?
Corey, does she need to send you a recording or anything?
Wait a second. What?
Say we'll send the file to Jarrett.
We'll send the file to Jarrett, Corey, and then he'll pass it on to you all.
Sounds great.
Okay, that was fun. I love hearing what's on your wall. You're a much better citizen than I am. I just have pictures of myself.
Well, no, I had to put together a studio of stuff that I could actually air on TV as well. So first I did have only family and friends of me, and then people was criticizing, oh, you got out, so I had to switch it up.
So I better too.
Thank you.
See you later. Bye.
Bye, everybody.